Now, when I organized this,
we know that so many of our people are losing jobs. Many of our homes harness the potential of every citizen.
Because in the first place, a government should never advocate that citizens have to downgrade in order to survive.
Our country, our future.
Hey, Jun! Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Away,
No, thank you for your invitation to your beautiful restaurant. Yeah.
No, let's have something to buy and chat later.
Thank you.
I have just two simple dishes for our lunch. One is the Peking duck, where it is a little different from normal Peking duck. You will see it when you taste it later.
Yes.
And we're going to have like yu tou lu,
Yes.
fish hot pot.
You may not know this. I know we were only introduced a few years ago by Kin Lian, but I've been coming to this restaurant since 2009 or 2010.
Okay.
And it was actually a British friend who was living in Singapore at that time who introduced me to this place.
Oh,
and she has a daughter who loves Peking duck. And I remember when she first brought me here, it was to eat the Peking duck.
Because we started here ever since day one when Vivo City started,
Right.
which was in 2006.
Yeah.
So if we have been there since then,
Yes.
I think this is one of the few restaurants where we serve throughout without any break in between, from 11 o'clock until at night 10 and dim sum throughout.
I am not flattering you, but this really is one of my favorite Chinese restaurants in Singapore.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for your support. Come, let's take a seat.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Lunch with June. Today I have with me my pleasure and honor to have Mr. Lim Tean here.
Thank you, June. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time. Now, Tian, I have told you not to eat anything today because we are going to feast on this. Although we are always watching our weight, right? So today I've arranged.
You've got all my favorite food.
Yes, I've arranged something very simple, which is the Peking duck and the fish hot pot. In Chinese, we call yu tou lu. So let's.
I must admit, June, I always come to your restaurant to eat the Peking duck, but I have never had the fish hot pot before.
Yeah.
So this is my introduction to it.
Yes, we use a fresh grouper, star grouper. You can choose actually any kinds of fish for the hot pot. You may want to choose a marble goby or any kinds of fish that we have in the live aquarium.
So you can actually order any type of fish that you have available in the restaurant.
Yes.
Right, very good.
Today we have grouper. So let's start.
Yeah.
The appetizer.
Please,
But
please.
before the appetizer, of course, just now, before we started, we already chatted a bit, and we had some wine with this cashew nuts already.
Fantastic.
This is caramelized cashew nuts, where many customers come back just to buy as gifts or for their house or for their friends. I especially like this. I want to introduce this.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it is one of my favorite things that I would like to give my friends when I visit them, because this is something, I would call it comfort tidbits.
Fantastic.
You can have it at any time. For those, I believe Lim Tean is no stranger to many Singaporeans out there. He is the chief of People's Voice and Opposition Party. He's also a practicing lawyer, and to me, he is the most vocal opposition party leader on Facebook, on all the social media. You see him day in, day out, and you have many followers. A lot of my friends in the ladies group, in the society group, they are always baffled. They are very amazed by Lim Tean because they say that, wow, I like to watch his video because he's really talking a lot of things that we like to hear. So that is Lim Tian to me.
Thank you, June. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And you recently started another YouTube show called After Work, Lim Tian After Work.
Let me explain a bit. This idea came about during the general elections, the recent general elections. And you know, this general elections was very different from previous general elections in one very big way. It was the first time that the internet, that the social media was the dominant media. Because it's not the mainstream media. Because, you know, of course, we couldn't do rallies. There was very limited house visits and community visits allowed. And so this was the first true internet election. And I recall when I first contested in elections 5 years ago in 2015, and the IPS, the Institute of Policy Studies, had a seminar thereafter. And they asked, was this an internet election? And the answer then 5 years ago was no, because mainstream media still was the main media. But you see, in this election, social media had taken over completely. And this is going to be the trend, I believe, for the coming years. Because, you know, 75% of Singaporeans are keyed into the internet. So it is not true that our elder citizens, our senior citizens, are not knowledgeable about the internet. And this number is going to increase. So I think social media is going to play more and more an important part. And I'm very happy because
it gives a platform.
It gives a platform to the opposition parties. As you know, I have never believed in the mainstream media. In fact, the mainstream media never reports me because they consider me a threat. And social media is the only way in which parties like People's Voice can get our message out to the public.
Right. That's Lim Tian. Forever the representation of voices in society.
Yeah, so June, let's come back to how I started in politics. So I've always been interested in politics, but then my legal career intervened. And from the time I was called to the bar in 1991 until 2007.
So wait, Tian, am I right to say that your father actually has a great influence to you taking interest in politics?
Oh, very, very much so.
Yeah,
very much so.
You were with him all the while
Yes.
in Russia, you know, and you were exposed to all the diplomacy and
Very much
politics
so.
then.
I think, you know, as they say, you know, a child's nurturing and influence is greatly affected by what, you know, the parents teach the child and speak to the child, the upbringing, you know. So no doubt about that. I think if I was born in a different family with...
so your father was a civil servant?
My father was a civil servant.
Okay.
In fact, my father in the late 70s was the chief of the People's Association.
I see.
Yes.
That explains why, you know, you went into politics, or you've taken an interest in politics.
Yes, so I have always been interested in politics. But then when I came back to Singapore and qualified as a lawyer, I would say for the first 17 years of my working life, I basically hunkered down and I did nothing but the law. I was with two very big Singapore firms and I had a very good practice. And in 2007, I went off to Indonesia to do something totally different from the law. I built up a mining company and in fact...
You became an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Or you
that was a very important part of my life because I would say that as a lawyer, as a professional, if you are good at what you do, you lead a very comfortable life. But you are actually not exposed to the rough and tumble of the business world. And so that period in Indonesia was very important because it exposed me to what the real business world was all about. And that is why today I am very sympathetic to that small businessman because I know how tough it is to do business.
Because if you have not gone into business, or you're just a professional, you will not know the hardships or the challenges faced by business people.
Precisely. I mean, the pressures at the end of the month to find the money to pay the rent, to pay the salaries and things like that, you know. And the funny thing was, and this was how I started, or my start in politics happened. In 2011, of course, we had that general election.
At one of time, obviously, I wasn't paying much attention to all the state of politics and current affairs in Singapore. I guess many Singaporeans are like myself,
yes,
where we are not quite savvy on things like that because we just go on our daily lives. So not very much observation in that part.
Well, you know,
yeah.
That is true, June. You know, most people get excited for that 2 weeks during the elections. And after that, you know, they switch off. But let's put things in perspective. And people may not realize the significance, but politics, everyone should be interested in politics because, you know something, everything you do in life is affected by what those politicians decide, especially the government of the day. And people don't realize this, all right? How much you pay for your MRT fares and whatever, it's all decided by the politicians. So why should you not take an interest in it?
That's why I've always shared with friends whenever we discuss issues with regards to politics. Then a lot of friends will ask, let's not talk about politics. I say, why not? Because politics to me is current affairs. It affects our daily lives. The more we should take an interest in what's happening, you know, with our country, with the policies around us, because it affects not only ourselves now, but if you have children, it is your next generation. Yes.
And don't forget this. Many people think, oh, this thing is too complicated for me. This is the work of the economists. There is no such thing. In fact, the establishment would like to trick us into believing that we must not touch certain subjects because they are specialized and we best leave it to the experts. But when you boil down to it, everything in life is a political decision.
Yes.
And there is no such thing as only the economists can explain to you and make the decisions for this. The first thing is, what choice do you want? And that boils down to a political decision. And once you have decided on that choice, you then talk about the economics of it.
Yes. So before that, Tian, before I will ask you the next important topic, I know that you've been hungry because, you know, I told you to come with an empty stomach. I cannot, I cannot let you have an empty stomach.
Thank you. Thank you. The food is delicious. But June, let me finish the story in 2 minutes. So I joined the National Solidarity Party, but I didn't do anything for 4 years. I didn't attend a single meeting. I didn't attend a single meeting.
Why was that so?
I was in Indonesia for a large part of that time, and in fact in 2015, I had just started a legal practice in Indonesia.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I was actually a lawyer in Indonesia for a couple of years. But in 2015, and this is the other amazing story, of course in 2015 Lee Kuan Yew died, all right? And within a few weeks of his death, the president of the NSP, Sebastian Teo, whom I had known 4 years earlier, a very, very nice guy, called me and said elections were near and wanted me to run. They were going to form a team for Tampines. That team was going to consist of Hazel Phua, who is now with PSP, Hazel's husband Tony, Sebastian, myself, and Reno, who is now the president of the NSP. And it was suggested to me that Tampines that year was going to be a very hotly contested constituency, very much like our JUN EP in 2011. I said, I'm not interested. I had just started a law practice. But you know, one thing led to the other, and so I started to join them for a few walkabouts in Tampines, and the press picked up on me and then said I was the new candidate. And before long, I did become a candidate, but that was also an amazing election because the party then had a lot of turmoil. Hazel Phua resigned as Secretary General. shortly before nomination. And then, unbelievably, for someone like me who had never attended a single party meeting or whatever, I was asked to be the new Secretary General.
I see.
So I took up the offer, and that was how I came into politics.
It seems like it is not an uncommon thing for all these people to come and go when they resign from this political party, they join another party. You know, it's not uncommon.
It is not uncommon, although I think there is too much of it in Singapore, to be honest with you. I think if you join 2 parties or at most 3, it is okay. But if you really keep switching parties, people are entitled to question what principles do you really stand for. Because every party stands for a different principle. And that is where I disagree, June, with, you know, for the last 2 years, I did believe in this concept of opposition unity, for the opposition to come together, to form a bigger coalition to take on the PAP.
That was what we heard over news.
Yes.
Or it was reported that way, that the opposition is trying to form a coalition.
But I think that idea is now dead, and people should not waste any more time pursuing it. And this election has really killed off that idea. And you can also see, even though we are in the opposition camp, but every party has a different ideology, has a different philosophy. You cannot say that People's Voice has the same ideology as WP or PSP. And neither can you say that PSP has exactly the same position as WP. I am not one of those who believe that we must have a 2-party system in Singapore.
So you believe in multi-parties?
I believe in multi-parties, and in fact, you see that that is the trend now in the modern world. And you know, I remember in the 80s and 90s, people would say, and as they were PAP people mainly, would say, oh, look here, you can't have multi-party systems like what's happening in Israel or with other countries. It just brings chaos, and Singapore cannot survive with that type of system. And today you still have Ong Yi Kang trying to tell Singaporeans we must be a 1-party state in order to ensure survival. I mean, that is rubbish. Yes, the Israeli parliament may be chaotic, but you know what? Today, Israel is the #1 country as far as innovation is concerned. It has more startup companies and more companies on NASDAQ than all the other remaining 7 countries which come after it combined. How do you explain that?
I think when you have more opposing voices, that means you are encouraging more independent thinking and freedom of thoughts and freedom of expression, and therefore the free flow of ideas, creative ideas and innovations. Do all this relate?
100%.
Right.
100%. I mean, if you have a 1-party state and you try to control the conversation, all right, you are going to stifle creativity. And that is why I think Singapore, sad to say, over the last 20 years has suffered. You know, I have lived in many countries, and I can tell you, you may say that Indonesia is poor, undeveloped, but they have an amazing young generation that is the equal, if not better than Singapore.
Oh, that I have something to say, to add on to this. If you look at, because I'm in F&B retail, but when we travel just as near as Thailand, we see creative entrepreneurs there. They are so artistic, they have very good designers. When you go there, the retail scene is very vibrant.
Yes.
They are very different. You don't see foreign workers there. They are just plain Thai people, you know, trying all sorts of business ideas over there. So as compared, that goes back to why you said that for the past 20 years that there's no
I don't find much innovation,
innovation
in Singapore. I mean, I come back to my favorite example, Indonesia. Why is Indonesia so vibrant today? That country has thousands of newspapers. I mean, you can say anything you want, except you cannot attack Islam. That is where they draw the line, okay? But fine, everyone can respect the religion, but otherwise, it's free for all. You say anything you want. And
Does that lead to the collapse of society? That was exactly what they said when Suharto fell in 1998. Oh, Indonesia is going to go to the abyss. It's going to cease to exist. You know? No, it has not. It has emerged as a stronger democracy and better for it. So that is my point. And, you know, the PAP will tell you a different thing. But who best to say than their founder, Lee Kuan Yew, who once told 3 American academics, you know why China will never be as innovative as America? Because in China, they don't have the freedom of expression.
It's control.
It's control.
Yeah.
Of course, I think today it is different. Today, China has made great strides in technology, but that is because of social media. That is because although the government comes out with one conversation or one narrative, people are chatting away on social media and you can't control that.
Right.
That is why I think social media is brilliant.
Right. Because by controlling, you know, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, it is ultimately controlling freedom of thoughts.
And you know, and why is that not affecting our livelihoods or our job prospects? Now we are having this debate in Singapore about SECA. We are asking ourselves, why is it that NUS and NTU, who are placed 11 and 13 respectively in the world rankings, and that is amazing. That is amazing. All right? You don't even have Yale, one of the most famous universities in the world, in the top 13. But NUS and NTU are 11 and 13.
I see.
And you don't have the Indian universities there, all right? They are not even in the top 100.
Yes.
Why then are so many important positions in Singapore taken by the Indians,
right.
All right, Indian nationals? I'm not being a racist Jew, but you have to ask yourself that question seriously. And if you ask some employers, they will say, oh, it's because, you know, they are more creative, they are more innovative. And what makes them so? Because, you know, India is a vibrant democracy, all right? And India is one of the best examples of democracy in the world, the largest democracy.
If we want a progressive nation or a more advanced nation, I think the media should open up and have a wider spectrum.
Oh, definitely, you know,
Wouldn't
the
you think
media
so?
should not be government controlled. It is sad to say that the media here is totally government controlled.
Right.
You know, we must have a free media, but I am not hopeful until the PAP loses power and an alternative government takes over for that to happen.
In a democratic society, why is having opposition parties important?
Very good question. I will say this. A Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth once said this: the government of the day is only as good as the opposition you have. And that is very true. We must understand human nature. Human nature will never change, all right? You can have thousands of years of history, human nature will never change. People are inherently selfish, they are greedy, and so when they come to power, they will tend to favor their own. All right? So don't believe this nonsensical narrative from the PAP that they will always act in the public interest, that they are doing it for Singaporean good and all that. If you look at the PAP's policies in the last 20 years, everything is so self-serving. In fact, you go back even further, 1988, the creation of the GRC system, which was to perpetuate their rule, all right? Which was to perpetuate their rule. So the opposition is there to check on that. And to me, that is the most important role of the opposition, which is to hold the government of the day to account. That is why also it is so important for that opposition not to have limited ambitions.
Right.
But if you want to do something for the people, you must have ambitions to be the government of the day one day. So I don't have much time for people who want to stay as opposition throughout their lives. No. I think by the time you have been in parliament, or your party has been in parliament for 15 years, 20 years, if you're not aiming to be the government by then, you really are wasting your time.
We are very happy to have Tian here to share with us his role. I think he has done the most tremendous job.
Thank you, June.
As someone who is so active on social media, forever or constantly questioning the government and picking on policies which are not beneficial to our country, to the nation. And this is what I call the unsung heroes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Risking every part of their career, themselves, by speaking up for all of us in order to make and to have an alternative voice to be heard. So this is something very, very respectful. I always respect that because they are not fearful of repercussions, because they are just speaking something. It's just freedom of speech and expression.
Yes.
And they're just
yes.
speaking something true and correct for the larger interest, I must say, right?
Thank you, June.
Thank you so much. And with that, I think that just having opposing voices is very precious because we should not take it for granted. Thank you so
Definitely.
much.
Thank you, June.
Thank you
for
so
a
much.
lovely meal as well. Yeah.
Not at all. So I'm going to serve us dessert.
Oh, thank you.
We have to wrap up a meal with something sweet.
What dessert are we having? Oh, this is wonderful. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I will introduce this dessert.
Thank you.
It's our,
Signature, huh?
yes, both are our signature dessert. Now this one, what you're seeing here, is a durian mochi.
Okay.
We have been featured many years ago when we started Black Society. Back then it was called Bosses.
Bosses, yeah.
Only 5-6 years ago, then we rebranded it to Black Society.
Yes.
Back then, during Bosses days, I think MediaCorp's program, one is called 超级美食站 or something like that. I forgot. We have a plaque, you know, on this program where they just especially come here to feature this durian mochi. The other one is, well, you eat mango puddings everywhere.
Right, yeah.
But this mango pudding is quite different because it's served with fresh mangoes and also ice cream on top of it.
Wow.
You can try it because
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to do that.
it is quite different
And what
when
ice
I eat.
cream is this? Is it?
It's a
durian
it's a sweet corn mango ice cream.
Wonderful.
And the mango pudding is just yummy to me. I'm not supposed to take sweet stuff, you know,
And this
but I
mochi
will.
is durian mochi, is it?
Durian.
Very unusual. Do you think this thing will sell in Japan? If they
I'm not sure. I'm not so sure about the Japanese because
Japanese.
durian is supposed to be an acquired taste.
Yes.
Yeah.
But mochi is of course Japanese,
Yes.
yeah, and
Maybe because of mochi, maybe they will try it. Tian, I would like to show my appreciation for your time here, where I have a little gift for you.
oh, June, that is very
Thank you.
kind of you.
It is
I want to
something-
tell you that it has been a great pleasure, you know, to come here and talk about things that are important to me. And I thank you for the time as well because I know you are someone who is very concerned about Singapore and interested in.
Yeah, because I love
in
our country.
Thank you so much. June.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, because I feel that opposition voices, Singaporeans should not take them for granted, should not take opposition and alternative voices for granted. It is a blessing in actual fact. You know, we don't want to regret it one day when we lose it. So we better not take such things for granted. It is a great thing to have.
I think absolutely right, June. I think we must respect every voice in society, not just opposition.
We must
voices.
recognize and respect it.
Respect.
Yes.
And also we must respect the civil societies. I mean, you know what is happening, especially today with that case of the acquitted Indonesian maid. She would not have been acquitted if not for the fantastic work of civil society, Home in this case, and her lawyer, who did the whole case pro bono and spent
really?
over 1,000 hours.
It was in the recent news,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right? Like 2 days ago?
And if you don't have people like that, you are going to see that various aspects of our society, our justice system, and a lot of other things not fulfilling the needs of our people.
Thank you so much, Tian.
Thank you.
The hero
Thanks, thank you, June. Thank
alternative
you.
voice.
Thank you for
from
your time.
people's voice.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Tian.
lot.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Dun, 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 dun. This part of Lunch with June, I'm especially going to introduce to you our brand in Kuala Lumpur, BREADSTORY. It is a boutique bakery chain in Kuala Lumpur and Langkawi in Malaysia. We have, right now, I think it's like 23 outlets since 2002. So, with this, for those viewers who are in Malaysia, you will know this is a household brand. For BREADSTORY followers, you know that we have our signature products, tomato bread, durian bread. We also have the mushy rainbow cake, which is the blue and rainbow cake. It is the most all-time favorite. We also have the crispy cookies. The crispy cookies is, you cannot stop at one can. The crispiness of it, it makes you eating it non-stop. We have 4 flavors: pistachio, coffee, almond chocolate, peanut, crispy cookie, and also cashew nuts. So 4 flavors. Of these 4 flavors, my favorite is still the peanut and the cashew nut. I cannot stop eating. I just can't stop at one can of it. And of course, to go on, we have all the lovely breads, our waffle range. We have all kinds of waffles, be it sweet or savory. We also have loaves and everything else. Anything you want in a confectionery, look for BREADSTORY.